Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this evening we'll have a look at the latest for the GFS, the GM, the ECMWF, the ECMWF Ensembles, the GFS Ensembles, and we'll finish up with the UKMO Run, having a look at the 5-day forecast with precipitation and temperature. Now, over the last few videos we have looked at the potential for it to be really quite cold around Christmas, and there is still a very high possibility of seeing some bitterly cold air in around the end of this year. The time frame really is what is causing headaches at this stage. I do generally think there is a really quite high chance now we do see at least a period of very cold and potentially snowy conditions. But again, whether it's in time for Christmas or even in the festive period is still up for grabs. The models have been so consistent with this blocking to our north and it heading towards Greenland and Scandinavia in general. I do believe at some point we will go to an easterly wind, but whether it is in time for Christmas, as I said, is still very uncertain. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So have a look at the latest GFS, and it is changing every single run, but it is staying consistent with this high pressure, and near enough every single GFS run now has some form of cold weather, and potentially snowy weather on it. Now, on this latest GFS, it delays it right towards the end of the year. So if we do run through it, you can see high pressure is building in over this next few days. Generally, things are going to be very dry for midweek, as we'll have a look at the precipitation charts at the end of the video. It does look like there will be some trapped cloud around, but there will be sunnier spells, and it is looking remarkably dry. Beyond that, the high pressure tries to head northwards, and we actually do see a bit of a slack easterly flow in time for this coming weekend. But as you can see, there isn't that much cold air. Any cold air is heading down towards Italy and down to southern parts of France. And we're generally staying under the high pressure with reasonably mild air. However, as I said over the last few days, it's likely to be an inversion with temperatures in the mid to high single digits and overnight around freezing or maybe just a touch above. You can see, if we look out to our east, towards Scandinavia and Russia and generally Eastern Europe, bitterly cold air is now coming out of the North Pole as a result of this high pressure, bringing big amplification, bringing this colder air in. Now, if we go back to the pressure chart, you can see it's under these blue heights, which is the lobe of tropospheric polar vortex. Now, as we continue through, you actually see the jet stream just power up a little bit towards Iceland. And what this does is flattens the high pressure temporarily. And you can see that high pressure does struggle in control. We're not seeing that on other runs, so interesting from the GFS. However, right towards Christmas Day, we're starting to see the high pressure ridge further northwards, which is doing earlier on other runs. So as I said, the time frame is the uncertain part. And you can see that lobe of bitterly cold air is just to our east. Really cold. And again, if we have a look at the upper air conditions, bitterly cold air is just to our east. And we're actually tapping into some of this colder air for Boxing Day. But we are still generally under quite high pressure. So will be minimal showers, if any. But beyond that, we do see that high pressure really starting to take control over towards Greenland and Iceland. And you see it starting to get a bit flattened once again, but we see it ridging once again towards Greenland, and you can see this lobe of bitterly cold air is now spreading directly southwards, and you'd expect with this pattern to see this bitterly cold air heading in. So the GFS is a bit intermittent with it, trying to get that cold air in, not quite, and then right towards the end of the run, it looks pretty likely we'll be seeing something much, much colder. So as I said, it is all about the time frame this stage. I do genuinely believe we will see some colder conditions at some point over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Whether it's in time for Christmas, in time for the end of the year, or whether it kicks in early January. That is what we've got to decipher over the next few weeks. But at this stage, we're seeing consistent cold runs appear, and it is looking bitterly cold at times on some of these runs. The GFS, even though it doesn't bring that bitterly cold in directly on this latest run, we would still be pretty cold and frosty throughout the Christmas period, with highs around 4 or 5 degrees and lows around freezing, as of course that milder air under the high pressure with the inversion will slowly get colder as we start to get more of this colder air pushing in from the east, even though it's not that bitterly cold air at this stage on this GFS run. Now, however, if we do have a look at the GM run, which notoriously yesterday went brutally cold, And I must say again, it is going very cold once again. It is bringing in bitterly cold easterly winds for Christmas Day. So as I said, it's all about the time frame. You see, the GFS run has nothing like that on Christmas Day, with high pressure sitting over the country. The GM goes bitterly cold, and we'll run through it now. As you can see, towards the middle of this week, high pressure is building in. Inversion, very similar to the GFS, up until day 7. However, you can see heights rising massively towards Greenland, with this high pressure spreading up towards it. You can see the bitterly cold air in Scandinavia, and we are veering into a bitterly cold easterly wind right for the Christmas period. And you can see on the 23rd we're pulling in that bitterly cold easterly wind, but there's no chance it's breaking down within a day or two. This is likely would last at least 3, 4, 5 days. So Christmas Day would be bitterly cold. Many areas would have snow on the ground, and if we did keep the easterly wind, we would see more snow showers, and potentially, if low pressure bumped into it, we could be even seeing heavier snow. And you can see it is brutally cold. -10 line spreading in through for many. And again, if we maintain the easterly wind, we might even get the -15 line through if we did run it on another couple of days. So you can see GM goes brutally cold. Different to the GFS, very similar pattern in terms of high pressure, low pressure. But the GFS just has that high pressure not getting quite as far north as the GM does. But by the end of the run, the GFS does do it. So, as I said at the start of the video, it's all about the timeline at this stage. Really, I do think we will be seeing something at least decently cold over the next few weeks. And again, if we do have a look at the temperature deviation, you can see it is massively cold, getting down to -10 below, sort of 10 degrees below average, maybe 12 degrees below average. So yeah, brutally cold. Now, if we do have a look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare once again. It's very similar, of course, as all the runs are showing this high pressure signal towards the middle of this week with big high pressure, and then we see that ridging further northwards. It goes much further northwards, but we don't see that bitterly cold air moving through. It's kind of in between the GFS and the GM. The high pressure's there, it's ridging further northwards, and we are seeing a bit of an easterly flow, but it's not a brisk easterly flow. It's very slack, and it would be generally frosty, cold, and you can see, actually, there is very cold air towards Scandinavia. You can see the cold front spreading across eastern half, and actually the coldest air is starting to get into the eastern half of the UK, into parts of Scotland and England, and we would go gradually much colder. It would just be whether we get that high pressure really going towards Greenland, pulling in the really cold air, which is sitting a few hundred miles to our east in Scandinavia, which is into the absolute freezer for the Christmas period. And once again, if we have a look at the temperature deviation, you can see that really stark cold front with the very cold air, -4, -6 degrees below average. But of course, that's for Scandinavia. If that cold air reached the UK, it would be around 8 or 10 degrees below average, with that -10 line potentially moving through, sending us into the freezer for the Christmas period. But once again, it's all about time frame. As you can see, the 3 runs all showing very similar pressure patterns, but with slight change in orientation and position. As you can see, make drastic changes to whether it's just cold and frosty, very cold and frosty, or very cold and snowy. Now, if we do have a look at the ECMWF, which are ensembles, which are very good at showing these slight changes in the pressure configuration, which gives these very big differences for the upper air conditions. Now, you can see generally high pressure is building in over this week, and you can see by day 7, so next Monday, we're seeing high pressure dominate. And you can see there are 3 different scenarios, but they all are very similar. Subtle changes in the orientation, and it may change the temperature by a degree or 2 either way, milder or a bit colder. But the high pressure is generally sitting over the top of the UK, and there's very strong consensus out to day 7. This is what we're going to be seeing, of course, but it's beyond that. If we do head to day 10, you can see actually we still have very strong consensus for this high pressure to be sitting over and actually ridging further northwards. But it's how strong it gets further northwards. And you can see both control, operational, and all of the ECMWF ensembles are going for this scenario. And you can see the centre of the high is to our north, towards Iceland, and we are pulling in a slack easterly flow. But it would just be generally cold and frosty, and maybe quite a bit colder if we did see some much colder air push in. But because we're generally under higher pressure, we won't be seeing too much in the way of snow. However, if we move to Christmas Day, so midnight on Christmas Day, you can see the three scenarios that now do crop up. We see 22 or 43.1% of the ensembles, including the control run, with very similar pattern we saw at day 10 on the 23rd, which is the high pressure just sitting to our north with a slack easterly flow, pretty chilly, but nothing in the way of bitterly cold and wintry. We see another 17 with that high pressure, similar to the GM run, going really up towards Greenland and Iceland, and we are pulling in a bitterly cold east to northeasterly wind with that low stratospheric polar vortex with bitterly cold air sending us into the absolute freezer. In from the east would be heavy snowfall around us as well, and many would actually be seeing a white Christmas. However, that's only 33.3%, so it is a decent chance. But again, all to do with time frame, because we see another 12 or 23.5%, which actually have that high pressure sinking back towards Europe. Now, it would be still pulling in a bit of an easterly flow, still chilly under the inversion, but not going bitterly cold at all. So you can see the three different scenarios, all very similar in terms of pressure charts, with that high pressure near in and around the UK. But it's subtle shifts in its positioning, and where that cold lobe of polar vortex air is to our east, makes all the difference. Now, if we move beyond that, all the way to the end of the run, 368 hours towards the 28th, you can see another 22 or 43.1%. The divisions haven't changed, with high pressure to our north, and we are pulling in a bit of a northeasterly flow, but it's not brutally cold. We see another 17 or 33.3% going for high pressure, really strong over Greenland, a massive Greenland block, and we would be going probably, or we would be in an historic cold event over Christmas. We would remember this for years to come if we did see a scenario like this where we saw bitterly cold air arriving a day or two before Christmas, going through the festive period with easterly winds, a lot of snow showers, and you can see under that lobe of low pressure, we would have centres of low just to our southeast, and it would be spiralling in heavy snow showers, convection, and of course we could be seeing persistent snow as well with that. But then there's another 12 or 23.5% with that block, once again, just sitting to our east with a slack easterly flow. So there are three scenarios here, drastically big differences for the big day and for the festive period in general. And as I said, all similar in terms of pressure charts. If we were looking a few weeks ahead, like if we were looking 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, they will all show something very similar on anomaly charts. But you can see very, very subtle changes in the positioning of the block. Gives us big differences. And we'll have to see how it resolves over the next few days and the next week in general. Now, if we do have a look at the GFS Ensembles, if we do pull it up, you can see that massive sort of differences between the ensemble members. Over the next week or so, towards the 20th, 21st of December, January temperatures are above average. We're actually seeing pretty mild conditions, but with the inversion, it could be pretty chilly towards the surface. However, around 21st, 22nd, 23rd, we're starting to see some much colder runs appear, and we're seeing some go into the absolute freezer towards the Christmas period and beyond. You can see one of these ensemble members getting down to minus 15 degrees at 850 HPA. Beast from the east levels of cold. We wouldn't see temperatures get anywhere above freezing in the British Isles. It would be brutally cold. And you can see the average is around the 1981 to 2010 mean. A lot of up and down. You see the operational run goes pretty chilly towards the end of the run. Not an outlier by any means. There's quite a few ensemble members around there. But once again, there's got some very mild ensemble members. But you can see generally things around average. But if we did go back to the midnight run, see much more of the ensemble members are going colder, getting the average down to -5 for Christmas Day. So you can see it is changing with every single run. You can't look at one run or one operational run or one even ensemble run and say anything too distinctly, simply because those percentages of those going bitterly cold around the Christmas to festive period, or those just keeping the high pressure around, centered over us, is changing with every run. It's going to be resolved over the next sort of maybe 3, 4, 5 days, or what we're going to be seeing at least on Christmas. But Up until then, we're going to be seeing a lot of chopping and changing, but we are still seeing some very cold runs appear for the Christmas period. So if you are looking for a white Christmas or some snowfall in and around the 25th to the 1st of January, there is still a fair chance, as we saw by the ECMWF Ensembles, about a third of the ensembles are going for that very cold and wintry scenario in around Christmas to New Year. And of course, things can change. But you can see, yeah, bitterly cold, potentially towards the end of the year. And regardless of whether we do go bitterly cold, it will still be reasonably chilly. And if we don't go bitterly cold, it will still be quite seasonable. So it is looking, like any wintry lovers out there, it is looking pretty decent for the end of this year for wintriness in terms of frost and colder temperatures. And of course, there is still a decent chance, maybe, of seeing some snow if we see one of these colder members come off. One good thing, though, for all I think we'll enjoy is very dry over the next few weeks. Of course, around the Christmas period, when the uncertainty builds and more low pressure potentially could move in from the east, we will see maybe an increased chance of precipitation, which would likely, if we did see the colder air move in, fall as snow. But over the next 10 days is looking really, really dry. Some rain at the moment in the north, but that will be slowly clearing over the next couple of days when high pressure does take over. Now, if we do finally have a look at the ECMWF not the ECMWF Ensembles, the UK Met Office precipitation and temperatures, you can see actually rain is moving into the north, into parts of the northwest, the Midlands, parts of Wales this evening, but it should slowly clear this evening and we'll see some more heavier rain towards Scotland, but high pressure is building in the south, a few isolated showers here or there, but eventually that precipitation will disintegrate, and by Friday, really no precipitation around at all, and once again through Saturday, things are looking really dry. Now, under some of the trapped cloud, we could see some drizzle here or there, but it is generally looking really dry from the end of this working week. For the foreseeable future, really. Now, if we do have a look at max temperatures, you can see today, temperatures got up to around 11 or 12 in the south, but around 4 or 5 degrees in the north, and that's because of that weather front across North Midlands into northern England, which is sort of the dividing line between the air masses. Now, beyond that, we do see by early hours of Tuesday, temperatures pretty chilly across the north, but in the south, reasonably mild, around 11, 12 degrees, and in the day on Tuesday, could be again 12, 13 degrees in the south. By Wednesday, though, temperatures in the day potentially rising once again to 11 or 12 degrees in the south, but 7, 8 degrees maybe further northwards, and by Thursday, 10 or 11 in the south, maybe 7 or 8, so not too bad, and then by Friday, we're starting to see the inversion come into play. 5 or 6 degrees in the south, similarly further northwards, and overnight Saturday, potentially widespread frost in parts of northern Scotland. And again, that's all because of the inversion that's going to be taking place, with much colder temperatures towards the surface than in the upper air temperatures. But soon we'll be starting to see Christmas come into a more reliable time frame and the festive period in general, and we'll have a very good idea on what is going to be happening with that. But at this stage, there's still a lot of uncertainty around. Can't believe a single run at this stage or a single ensemble run. You've just got to look at the potential for seeing something very cold. It must say it is some of the highest potential we've had in many years for a cold and potentially snowy Christmas, or at least festive period, the 7 to 10 days of between sort of Christmas Eve into the New Year. There is a decent potential we see something quite cold during that period. But of course, just got to keep an eye really on what happens. So make sure you stay up to date with my videos, and of course with the Met Office forecast, I'm sure they are keeping a very close eye on this, because for them, issuing many weather warnings over the festive period could be quite disruptive with weather warnings and people travelling, etc. So I'm sure they're keeping tabs to this, and I'm sure they'll have 10-day trend out this week, which we'll be looking at this in more detail. I'm sure they'll show us very well. So make sure you check out their videos, and of course make sure you do keep up to date with the weather warnings, and of course I'll be updating my videos every day as well. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.